Good evening. I'm Beth Keller from Highland Park Public Library. We'd like to welcome you to this special event, an evening with Harlan Coben in conversation with Shari Lapena. Tonight's special program is presented by a partnership of your public libraries and is hosted by Aurora Public Library District, Glencoe Public Library, Highland Park Public Library, Lake Villa District Library, Niles Main District Library, Northbrook Public Library, Vernon Area Public Library, and Wilmette Public Library. Tonight, Harlan Coben will discuss his new book, Win, which is already a #1 New York Times and USA Today bestseller. Thanks to Barbara's Bookstore and to the Book Stall for supporting this event with online sales. Links to purchase Win from these stores can be found in the chat box on your screen. A signed bookplate will be included with each copy of Win purchased while supplies last. Purchases of the book will support these local bookstores. Following tonight's presentation, there will be a question and answer session. You can submit your questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and typing in your questions. My colleague, Raz Topolsky from Vernon Area Public Library will moderate the question and answer session. Please note that as an attendee tonight, your microphone and camera are turned off. Closed captioning has been enabled. You can turn off the closed captioning by clicking on the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen. I'd now like to turn it over to Caitlin Hannon from Northbrook Public Library to introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. So with more than 75 million books in print worldwide, Harlan Coben is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of numerous suspense novels, including The Boy from the Woods, Runaway, Don't Let Go, Home, and Fool Me Once, as well as the multi-award-winning Myron Bolitar series. He is also the creator and executive producer of many television shows, including several critically acclaimed Netflix original drama series. These include The Stranger, Safe, The Woods from Netflix Poland, and The Innocent from Netflix Spain, releasing globally on April 30th. Coben is developing 14 projects with Netflix in the US and internationally, including original series in France, the UK, and the USA. Shari Lapena is the internationally best-selling author of the thrillers The Couple Next Door, A Stranger in the House, An Unwanted Guest, Someone We Know, and The End of Her, which have all been New York Times and the Sunday Times of London bestsellers. Her books have been sold in 37 territories around the world. The paperback edition of The End of Her goes on sale on June 1st, and her next book, Not a Happy Family, goes on sale from Pamela Dorman Books and Viking on July 27th. And she lives in Toronto, where she is also joining us from today. So thank you, Shari and Harlan, for joining us this evening. And I'm going to hand it over to both of you now to start tonight's conversation.
Thank you, Caitlin. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Hi, Harlan.
Hey, Shari, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. And I have to congratulate you. #1, first week out with Win.
Yeah.
And well deserved. I love this book, and anyone who hasn't read it yet will have to go get it and read it because it's really, really good. Well deserved that #1.
You know this, and I don't know if people know this, but so Wednesdays, if your book comes out, our books always come out, or usually comes out on a Tuesday. And then the following Wednesday, or every Wednesday around 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, the New York Times releases their list. So all of publishing is sort of hanging by, used to be a fact when I first started, hanging by the email, waiting to hear it. I was actually doing a radio interview live in New Zealand, and my phone dinged and my publisher had all these exclamation points and one on it. So I let a little yelp during my interview with New Zealand.
Yelps are good, but what do you do to celebrate something like that? I mean, #1, that's a life goal for me.
I usually do nothing. I really can't. No, I mean, when my kids aren't around, I text my kids and they all post it on their own social media, which is so cute. But usually I really just like to sit and think for a second, just like, wow. I mean, wow. It's really, it never gets old. It just is. I love to try to grab those moments and appreciate them, and then move on from there. But it's a great feeling. I have cosmic, like, very zen. more important. And then, the dog started to nip on my leg saying, can I go out for a walk? So it gets right back to normal.
Well, it must be good after we know the work that goes into a book. So, when you're struggling with the book and you're in the dumps there with the book, it's so nice to have those moments,
Yeah.
after all the work. Well, I loved Win, both the book and the character. And I'd like to talk a bit about Win, the character, if we can, for a bit. I found him absolutely fascinating because he's charming, he's funny, he's larger than life. He's this super wealthy guy who travels around in fancy jets and helicopters, and he drinks all the fine wines, and he can knock anybody down and beat them up, and he's almost like a superhero. So he seems like sort of over the top, but he's very, very human. And so on the one hand, he doesn't understand, or he doesn't get the things that normal people get, like romantic love. He doesn't get that.
Right.
And he's going around being all suave and everything, but he actually really enjoys violence. So he likes to beat people up. And I wonder, is he a bit of a psychopath? Can you tell us what you think of Win?
I think he's a little bit of a sociopath. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because somebody kind of commented that, wow, I guess you write books of sociopaths. I'm like, if you want the nice guy, read my other 32 novels. It is a change. And so people seem to be embracing the change. Maybe I should have gone a little more psycho earlier. But so for those who don't know, Win was a sidekick. I invented Win, if you will, in the early 90s when I started my Myron Bolitar series. I always loved the sidekick. Batman and Robin, Spencer and Hawk, Sherlock and Watson. And so I wanted to give Myron that kind of a character. I'm seeing technical difficulties popped up. Is there a problem that we should know about? Closed caption. They're working on the closed captioning. I'm sorry. So, I always wanted that for this character. And so when I created Myron, I based Win off my college roommate, who has a name equally.
Is he listening tonight?
He knows it's him. He's still my best friend. But
Oh, good.
when we first met in college, back in those days, some of you were a little older, you remember we had actual Facebooks. Not Facebook. We had actual Facebooks when you came in as a freshman in college that showed you pictures of everybody. And I remember going through the book with my dad and going, look at this ass. I won't even see this guy. The smug, he looked just like Win. Gorgeous blonde hair and the smug look on his face. You just want to punch him. And end up we became best friends right away. And before we'd go out to a party, he would look in the mirror and go, it must suck to be ugly. So I took this guy and I tweaked him. Now, the real Win can't fight his way out of a wet paper bag, but people hated him on sight. They just detested him. And because of that, the whole haughty thing going on. So what I tried to do was, well, what would happen if that went a little farther? And that was kind of how I started to create Win. And he was much more damaged earlier on. The real challenge was also making him, evolve and change from the early days with still being who Win is, As he puts it, Batman's only superpower is that he's really rich, which is Win's superpower.
Yeah. But he is a very complicated person. So he's over the top like a Batman, but he is really human. The way he feels about, Myron, his best friend. He's got all these strong feelings of friendship with Myron, and yet he can't understand romantic love. So he's just a really compelling, really interesting character. And for a psychopath, he's totally likable. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's quite he's just very funny and disarming. I really enjoy him as a character. So yeah, I can see where people are embracing this sort of charming psychopath and really enjoying being with him. So I really hope you do some more Win books.
I hope so too. I mean, this was an experiment. There's a number of readers out there, I'm sure, who I've been asked to do a Win book forever, and I've always said no for the very reason I think that people have always asked. And also I've always believed Win's always been maybe my most popular character, but as a sidekick, I always thought less was more. That the reason why you wanted more of him is because I didn't give you more of him. So I've resisted this urge to, or not, it hasn't been an urge for me, but I resisted the calls to have a Win book. And what happened was I was coming up with the idea for this one and realizing the world. I wanted a stolen Vermeer painting. I wanted an heiress who had been kidnapped. I wanted an Upper West Side penthouse apartment. Well, this was Win's world. And so I said, let's give it a try. The other thing, Shari, and I'd be curious of your response to this. I've always sort of prided myself that I'm Myron and my friend is Win. But what I've also learned is there's probably more of me in Win than I like to admit. I think when people read Win, even when you are repulsed by him, you find there's something alluring about the way he makes these kind of decisions. Do you have characters like that where you think, oh, this is the one who's kind of more like me, but actually you find out that it's actually another character that you may sympathize with more?
I don't know for sure. Like, I do like to go in and explore all of them, and all my characters are usually, there's something off about a lot of them. And it says something about us, all of us crime writers who really like to explore those people. But yeah, I mean, we have an affinity for those kinds of characters, don't we? Which is probably why I enjoyed Win so much. Because, you know, I like the psychopath. All my books have psychopaths in them. I really enjoy them. I find them really interesting. And, you know, a psychopath doesn't necessarily have to be a violent serial killer. You can have a psychopath who's quite charming. And, you know, Win does like his violence, but he also likes his fine wines. And he's just a really, one of the most original characters I've seen in a while. So I really hope we have more of him. I quite liked it.
And based off what happened, I assume so. Or Myron, one of the two or both. I do hope to have back. Not next book. Next book will be a sequel to The Boy from the Woods, which is maybe also a sequel to The Stranger now. I didn't intend for that to be, but it's sort of happening as I'm writing it. But I think Win also has a self-awareness that makes him tolerable. It's not like he doesn't get where he is and who he is and what he's doing. He kind of does. But it was, you know, it was a little easier to get in that head. And the challenge, of course, was I did first person from his viewpoint the entire book, but it ended up being something I kind of really liked and would like to try doing again.
And he was also speaking to the reader a bit too.
Yeah, I cheat with that a lot.
Yeah.
I think one of those rules is that when you know the rules, you can break them.
Yeah.
I remember when I was writing Tell No One 100 years ago now, but I was writing the book in first person, and about like 100 pages, 90 pages in, I realized I kind of wanted to go to third person also. Well, you can't really do that. You either have to be first person or third person, or do the alternating chapter thing. But I did it. And so maybe a quarter of that book is in third person, 3/4 of it is in first person. Once you know the rules, you can break it. So there are times that Win will turn and sort of face the audience and speak to them, or the reader, I should say.
I think you're right. I think there really aren't any rules. I mean, you can do anything writing a thriller as long as you do it well. You know, you can be forgiven anything if you do it well.
And I don't think you need to have characters that are, you know, most of the characters I write are nice guys. They're likable. They're Adam in The Stranger, or Beck in Tell No One, or even Myron. Most of them are family people. Myron is not, but most of them have families and, you know, wives and, or in the case of the leads, husbands, and they're sort of nice people. But it's not important they're nice. It's just more important they're real. Yeah. And also, I think if you're I always say, if you're in a bar or a pub, would you want to overhear what this person is saying? And the answer with Win is yes.
Yes. You have to be interesting.
Find them compelling, I hope.
Yeah, you have to be interesting. So part of the fun of this book is the world that you've created. You know, Win going around, he's super, super wealthy, and, you know, he's very well dressed. He says, you know, I'm quite the rake. He goes everywhere by helicopter. One of the things that I most enjoyed in this book was the rendezvous app for the super rich. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
So the rendezvous app for the super rich is sort of an app where people hook up, but you have to have a net worth of, what is it, $100 million to be on the app. And there's a rating system. But the most hilarious part for me was to get to the tryst, you go through the basement of Saks.
Next Fifth Avenue. Yeah.
So I want to ask you,
yeah,
how do you you do your research? I mean, you've got 75 million books in print. You probably own a helicopter, good if you want
Oh
to.
yeah, several.
But do you live this kind of life, or do you just know people, or how do you do your research on this stuff?
I know some. I make a lot. The app is completely fiction. Though a lot of my rich friends are calling me up saying, Harlan, I know you didn't make it up. So tell me how I get on this app. I'm like, I was trying to figure out how Win could still be Win and not do the things that in today's world, and even Win knows are wrong. So how can Win still be the way he is? And it's modern, it's modern times. When I first created Myron and Win, I think their first book was 1990, it came out in 1995. So I probably wrote it in 1993. A lot of you weren't even born then. But I used to have this thing where Myron would call Win on his mobile phone so Win could like listen in and if he was in danger to know what's going on. And at the time, this was like cutting edge. Of course, now that I might as well have 2 cans and a string by how cutting edge that is. So this is what I thought would be cutting edge, that Win would have an app kind of like this. And so I was thinking when I'm walking in the city where I'd go, and I remember that the vault in Saks Fifth Avenue, and I said, oh, maybe just walk by there. I bet there's a door, and I don't know if there's a door or not. And Shari, we give a lot of complicated answers, but sometimes the answer is, I make it up.
Yeah.
I
just imagine all these little Harlan Coben fans walking around the basement of Saks looking for a door.
I'm going to say right now, business would be very good for them, right? People trying to open secret doors over there to get the rendezvous.
Anyway, the world of the book is really very fun. So yeah, I guess, if you talk to friends who have lots of money, or you probably Google and do the same things that all the rest of us do. But yeah, that was really fun. Now, I'd like to ask you how you plot, because I've always been a fan of your plotting for many years. You always have lots of strands that seem to be unrelated at the beginning, that always, come together. And I'm interested how you do that, how you start. Like you mentioned at the beginning, you wanted to deal with paintings, you wanted to deal with
kidnapping.
What you mentioned. What's that?
An heiress kidnapping, 60s.
An heiress kidnapping. Now, do you take all these disparate things and find a way to weave them together? How do you go about plotting? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I write down a lot of ideas. There's usually then one spark that puts it all together. But in this case, right, I want to do like 60s radicals, like the Weather Underground. And suppose some of them were still hidden today. I wanted to do an art heist like the Gardner Museum in Boston, which still hasn't been solved.
Yes.
Many paintings, including Vermeer.
Yeah, that's a fascinating case.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think every writer at one time thinks about doing that. I want to do a Patricia Hearst type, big kidnapping of someone wealthy. I wanted to do 3 or 4 different things, and that could have been might be 3 or 4 different books. But the challenge is there a way? Is there a what if? Because everything about writing is a what if that can start to put more of those together. And sometimes I start thinking about them as I'm doing it. That's why I never have an idea when I'm done with a book. If I have an idea while I'm writing a book, it somehow finds its way into that particular book. So the challenge becomes, how do I make all of that make sense? How do I, it's like you're walking through a minefield, right? I'm going to turn a lot of these on, and you may trip, I don't know how many I'm going to trip in the second half, but how do I get all of those things to work? And in this case, because this was so many, Win was the kind of the obvious answer. He would be in this world. It could actually be his painting that was stolen. It could be his relative who was kidnapped. So I love personal stakes too. I never write a book, or I haven't, I don't think, written a book where a police officer or even Myron is just solving a crime to solve a crime. There always has to be something personal. It's that special episode of Blossom, Harlan Coben novel, if you will.
Yeah. But how do you actually come up with that plot? Are you just writing along and these, you find, like, you have the idea of having Win in the center of them, but you actually, plot it all out on a piece of paper, or do you do it as you go along? I'm curious.
I know the beginning and the end, so I know the
Uh,
setup, and I know who did it. This was a
okay.
little trickier, and a lot of them are this tricky, but there's like probably 3 or 4 revelations that come in the last 20 or 30 pages where he's got to solve all of those things, and they're not necessarily the same person. So the art, the kidnapping, all the the 60s radicals, all of those things he needs to solve. So the heart, but I do know the answer to all of those before I start.
Mhm.
I know the ending. I did one of these, and I'd be curious, Shari, you know the ending too, don't you, or don't you? You don't know.
Never.
You
Haven't got a
never know.
clue.
That's
Never.
it.
Not till the last chapter.
People, if you ask 10 writers how they do it, you get 11 different answers.
I know, that's why I'm asking you, because
Yeah.
I love your plots, and you do one a year. And I just, I'm always looking for a way to try and become more efficient, and I just can't find one.
No,
So
I always need to know the ending, and then I compare it to driving from my home state of New Jersey to California. I may go Route 80, I may go via the Suez Canal or stop in Tokyo. I always end up in LA. And as long as, in my case, I know where the ending is, so I can kind of see the ending, then I'm more comfortable going off road and being able to fool you, because ultimately, it's like if you're following me in a car and I'm trying to lose you. If I know where I'm going, it's easier to lose you, right? I can pull
right.
parking lots, I can go whatever way I'm going. So that's kind of how I do it. I know I know a few spots I'll definitely stop on the way, um, and then I kind of go from there. But nothing. Not everything else is planned out.
With me, I'm just going, and I never know how it's going to end until it's all
Like,
over.
are you? E.L. Doctorow has a great quote on writing where he says that writing is like driving at night in the fog with just your headlights on. You can only see a little bit ahead of you, but you can make the whole journey that way. So
Yeah,
you see a little bit ahead of you. It's not like you're
yeah,
doing right
yeah,
10 pages maybe or something like that.
yeah. That's a great quote.
Yeah, isn't
I
that
live
great?
by that one.
Yeah, E.L. Doctorow.
Yeah. So let's say, you write your book, and then what's your revision process like? Do you do a lot of revision, or do you write beautifully right from the get-go?
I don't know any writer who doesn't do a lot of revision. Well, there's the one guy, but none of us want to hang out with him, right, Shari? So
Yeah.
um, I I revise as I go along. So I don't write.
Mhm.
I'm trying to do it on the correct way on my screen, but I don't write in a straight line like this. I kind of write like this, where each day I go back and I reread what I did the day before
Yeah.
as a start, and then I go back maybe every 75 pages or so. I go back to the beginning. In fact, I'm at that stage in my book right now, and I'll read the whole thing all the way through up to 75, 100, 150, whatever it is. It helps me get a running start. It helps me keep track of where I'm going. So the first chapter, by the time the book is done, would have already been rewritten 10 times.
Yeah.
And you?
Yeah. Similar. I do go back, and I do a bit of overlap each day to get going into the next day. But then I do an awful lot of revision because I don't plan anything, and I don't know where my ending's going to be. So I do a lot of revision.
You got to go back and put the clue into chapter 4 that you didn't have yet.
Well, what's interesting is the clues are often there. Like all
Right.
these little unconscious things are all there, and I go, oh, it's already there. I don't even have to put that in. It was pointing to this at the end. Don't you find your mind works that way?
Yep.
Like your unconscious mind is always planting things and developing things for you. It's great.
Almost all of my revisions is on prose. It's almost never on plot.
Mm-hmm.
How it happened, I talked to my friend Lee Child, the Reacher novelist, and quite frequently he and I do events together and we talk about this. And his sort of thing is like, when I wrote that, that's how it happened. I can't go back and make it happen a different way. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I
Yeah.
kind of see where he's coming from, where it is all making sense. I may not see
Yeah.
all of the clues, and all of a sudden I realize, oh, wait a minute, I did put that already in, so that will add up in the end. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's your subconscious or hope springs eternal.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the unconscious, and I count on mine to do things for me. Um, and how would you describe yourself as a writer? Are you a disciplined writer? Are you I guess you would have to be with the output that you've got. You must, what do you do? Write 8 hours a day, or?
No, I think about it all the time. I'm terrible company. I don't really have any other interests. So when I sit down and write, it's already been written in my head a lot.
Mhm.
So And I'm also a streak writer. I don't do the 2,000 words a day or five, whatever it is. I don't do anything like that. I don't do a chapter a day. And normally my normal way of doing it, if a book is 500 pages long and takes me 9 months to write it, somewhere around the 8-month mark, I'll maybe be on page 250. And the last half will be written in no more than a month. The last 40 pages of Win I did in one day. It wasn't a pretty day. You wouldn't want to hang with me that day. And I grow a playoff beard. I don't shave. I don't shower. I don't change my socks. My kids walk by the room and say, throw daddy a banana, and then they run away, but that's normally, as much as I keep trying to be more disciplined, I don't find it works for me. And you?
Oh, I'm the opposite of you in lots of ways. I'm the 2,000 words a day, like consistent. If I had to do 40 pages in a day at the end with a deadline, I'd just scream and cry. I don't think I could. I don't think I could.
Oh, I scream and cry.
Oh, fair, good, okay.
No, there's lots of whining that goes on with being a writer, as you know.
Oh, I know. Whining and gin and tonic and, various other things. So I want to know, doing a book a year and all of these TV productions you do, how do you manage to do all that work? Like I've seen quite a few of your Netflix shows. In fact, I've seen all of them, Stranger, The Safe, The Five, The Boy in the Woods. I've seen them all. I'm waiting for the new one coming out, The Innocents. How do you do a book a year and manage all of that? Like, do you have a personal assistant? Do you not sleep? Like, how do you manage it all? You're like a superhero.
Well, first of all, I can't wait. The Innocent comes out on Netflix April 30th. You can put it in your remind list now so they remind you.
April 30th.
It's good. It's Netflix Spain. It's a guy named Oriol Paulo, though. It'll be either dubbed, and this is actually pretty good dubbing, or I always recommend the subtitles.
Yeah, subtitles all the way.
It's mind-blowing. It's I think the best of the adaptations, which I didn't say. No one, I know there's 446 people here. No one say that outside of this room. So I'm really excited about The Innocent. It also depends on the show. The English language shows, The Five, Safe, The Stranger, and we're right now filming Stay Close. Maybe some of you know Cush Jumbo from, it's a British cast, but Cush Jumbo, who was in The Good Wife, James Nesbitt, Richard Armitage, who was in The Stranger, played Adam the Stranger's back with us, Eddie Izzard.
Okay.
It's really great. It's a great cast, and we're filming that right now in Manchester. On those, I do a lot. The European, the foreign language ones, I do a fair amount, but it's not every day because they can't translate everything for me. I talk to the director, but it's not quite as hands-on. Here's the thing. I have the time because I have really, and I recommend this if you want to be a writer, I have no other interests. I mean, I'm a father and I'm a writer, and my kids have grown now. My youngest is at Brown University. So my 4 kids have grown. I got the dogs. They gave me my kids got a second dog, which is, knowing I would take care of it. So that distracts me a little bit. But I actually recommend that. So because of that, what else am I going to do with my day? What else am I going to do with myself? I have no other marketable skill.
That's true of so many writers, don't you find?
Yeah,
I can't imagine what else I would do.
Exactly. And fear, does that fear bring you back sometimes to writing and working harder? It's like, oh my God, if I don't have an idea, I'm gonna have to get a real job.
I know. I still have bad dreams all the time about being in a job place and I don't know how to do the job.
Yeah, like
all the time. Like this week I've had dreams like that. It's just something that never goes away. Where I go back to the workplace and I have to do a job. I had one last week where I was working in Microsoft, which is absolutely ridiculous because I'm horrible with technology. And I thought, I can't do this. But the woman who hired me was my Toronto publicist. And I thought, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, that's it. And I recommend it. Telling this story that a rock star told about another rock star. So he was talking to his friend they're two big rock stars. And his rock star friend, of course, they're both super wealthy. So guy bought a second house and he started to, put whatever. He got really into Persian carpets, really, and started collecting them. And he started to travel to see them. And he would go on weekends to antique stores. And he forgot to do music. right?
Uh,
He got so into the Persian rugs that he forgot to make music. So having a hobby, I don't collect vases. I don't like stamps. I don't even know what I would do. But those things, I hate to, it makes me, one-dimensional person maybe, and maybe not as happy and fulfilled as those of you who have hobbies and enjoy them. But this is the only thing I kind of enjoy doing, is to have you contact me and say, you know what? I started when 11 o'clock last night. I stayed up to 5 in the morning. I kind of hate and love you. I love that. That's my thing. Let's keep that going.
yeah. So I just wanted to ask you again about the film work, the TV work. Do you write those screenplays, or do you just consult on them, or how does that go?
It depends on the project. Mostly I'm in charge of the English language ones of the story. So if
Okay.
we broke it down, it would probably be story by me, teleplay by whoever. So we have a team of there's 4 of us that have been the core team of all the British shows. And we, 2 of us, me and another guy, really sit down. We break out the episodes a lot. And then, of course, we keep changing it as it goes on. The writer himself will change it, but they stay pretty close to the outline that I and this other guy, work on. And coming up. It's a team effort. I'm the captain of the team. I compared, when you have when the book hit today, hit the list, it's like a tennis player and I won Wimbledon, right? I'm standing there and so proud I won Wimbledon. When you do a TV series, it's like you're winning the World Cup and you're captain of that team. But you don't care who does the scoring. You just want to win. And you want all those players to go home and get huge contracts from their other teams. And it's fun because you're celebrating and you're collaborating with other people. So that's how I would compare it. But every day they send me what they filmed the day before and I watch it. I don't watch all of it because it's literally, if you're watching 3 minutes of TV, it was probably an hour and a half of filming of different angles and what shots we're going to use and things like that.
Okay.
It's been an interesting process.
Yeah. Interesting. One thing I really enjoy about your books is the intertextuality, how everyone interacts with everyone else. Where in Win, he's thinking about things that he did with Myron. And one thing I really enjoyed was when he did the Rendezvous app, and he goes to meet the 9.85 woman, and it happened to be Myron's ex-fiance.
Yeah.
Or ex-wife, ex-fiance.
Ex-fiance, yeah.
Ex-fiance. Yeah, I find that sort of thing really enjoyable, and I think probably your fans do too. That they like the connections between the different books and the different characters. I find that really, really fun.
Yeah, Jessica hadn't been in a book that I've written, I don't think, in almost 20 years. When she dumped Myron, and Myron kind of dumped her back. And it was actually funny in the beginning when I used to write that series. People get angry because they didn't really think Jessica and Myron were a good match, and I was always like, well, don't you know people in real life who aren't good matches? That's what makes it kind of compelling. I mean, I don't want them to necessarily be a good match. And so it was really kind of fun. I love when that wasn't planned before I started to write it. Somewhere in the middle or somewhere, well, it's fairly early on, wherever it was, a few chapters before I wrote it, I thought about having Jessica come back and so people could see her again. And if you never met her, it makes no difference. Like you never met her before, and it made no difference to your enjoyment. That's also always the key, that it doesn't change anything. That if you've never read one of my books, Win can be your first book and you won't feel lost. If you have, you might have a different dimensions of what you enjoy or don't enjoy.
Right, and then if you have read the other ones, it's even more enjoyable to see these characters come back. And
we hope.
So I'm going to ask you, what's the best writing advice you've ever received?
The number one writing advice in the world comes from Elmore Leonard. I was there the first time he said it. Elmore Leonard made these rules of writing, and he did it in a speech at BoucherCon. And my favorite one is, I try to cut out all the parts you'd normally skip. That's just genius.
Yeah.
And I do. It doesn't, on every page, every paragraph, every sentence, every word, I ask myself, is this compelling? Is this gripping? Is this moving the story forward? It doesn't mean you can't have themes or emotion or descriptions. You can, but even those have to be, the grass can't just be tall. It's got to be tall enough to be able to go on the adult rides at Six Flags. It has to be something a little bit different and better, right as though there's a knife by your throat, right as though you're a caveman, and if you bore somebody, they're going to pick up a large club and hit you over the head with it. And I try to write with that kind of energy, no matter what I'm writing. It could be, I've done editorials, whatever it is, you try to write as though every word matters, and you can get rid of it if it's not working.
That's good advice. Have you ever had any really bad advice? Bad writing advice?
Drink heavily.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember.
The only advice I've had that I thought was kind of bad advice was write what you know. And I think if everyone just wrote what they knew, we'd be missing out on a lot of really good creative imaginative stuff,
Yeah. Well, what do we know about murder and mayhem and kinky
exactly.
kinky sex, but just kidding. Yeah, no, it's sometimes, they do it sometimes on TV shows where they make fun of the kind of snooty actor, and they just say, the famous Laurence Olivier, when he was making Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman's like, I'm not sure, how do I get into this character? And he's like, just pretend you're that person. It's not that difficult. So it's the same kind of a thing.
So you're a pretty recognizable guy. You have your pictures on the backs of your books. Do you have any interesting fan interactions that you can tell us about? Anything odd that ever happened to you or funny?
Not really. I mean,
No?
I actually get recognized much more when I'm traveling in France for some reason I do here.
Really?
But what's good about what I look like is, if I want to go incognito, I just put a hat on and no one recognizes me. Literally. Moshe Dayan, the old defense minister from Israel, who was famous for the eye patch, what he would do when he would want to go out is he'd take the eye patch off and put on sunglasses so he could walk anywhere. No one
would do it. I remember him. Yeah, that would do it.
So that would do. It was the same. It's sort of the same thing. I also have a number of friends who are really famous, and I get to see that side. And most of the time, people think I'm their bodyguard. So it's not something that it's not an aspect I relish. I do love interaction with readers, but it's not like writers don't get stopped. That's the beauty of what we have. We have some of the advantages of fame. You need tickets to something, you could probably get them and that kind of a thing. But we're rarely recognized. Are you recognized very much? I mean,
no, like the opposite. The reason I'm asking is I had an experience on a train into New York a couple of years ago where I sat down and the woman next to me was reading one of my books. And I said, I leaned over and I said, I wrote that. And she cringed. So she went away from me like I was some kind of a nutter on the train. And she clearly didn't believe me. And I ended up, taking out my driver's license to prove to her who I was. But I don't imagine that would happen to you. Like they would look at you and go, yeah, that's Harlan Coben.
A number of years ago when I was in France, someone was reading my book out in public, and I don't speak French. So I walked up to the person. I don't say anything. In fact, if you look at my Twitter, I have a picture of a woman who was sitting in front of me in a plane who fell asleep reading my book. I didn't take the picture while she was reading it. When she fell asleep, I was so excited. My kids were cracking up, like, shh, quiet, don't wake her up. So, I took the picture. So she's sitting there with the book like this. I have several friends send me these when they see them. But I walked up to the person at the time. I said, that's my book. And no, it's my book. Like they thought I was trying to take, and I'm trying to point to my picture on the back, and they kind of just weren't having any of it.
That's the kind of thing I mean. Strange things happen, eh? So we might see some more Win books. I sure hope so.
Yeah, man plans, God laughs, which is what Myron Bolitar always says. So I don't know, but my guess is I'm certainly not done with Myron and Win. I don't know if the next one I do of them would be from Myron's viewpoint, Win's viewpoint, both's viewpoint, just Myron, just Win. I don't know any of that yet. I never know what I'm going to do after the book I'm writing. Never. I just can only focus on the book I'm writing right now.
And what are you writing right now?
I'm writing, I wrote a book that came out last year called The Boy from the Woods. And intentionally, I didn't give the boy's origin story, how he ended up in the woods as a child. So this book opens up, he's sitting across from his father. We get, so this book is him trying to find out how how he ended up in the woods as a child. He ends up in the woods and doesn't know how he got there. He always all he remembers is being in the woods. He doesn't remember ever being raised by parents like a Mowgli or Tarzan. He just doesn't remember. No one knows what happened to him. And now he's an adult and he still doesn't know. So this book will answer that question. But what's weird, not that everything's ever happened to you, Shari, like this, but if you either watched The Stranger or you read The Stranger, at the end the stranger gets away.
Mhm.
And I never really thought much about it. That I wrote that book 6 or 7 years ago. But all of a sudden, I'm on about page 60 or 70 of this book, and The Stranger popped up. So this may end up being a sequel to both The Stranger and The Boy from the Woods.
See, I like that. I like that
Yeah,
intertextuality. I'm looking forward to that one.
no,
I
thank,
love The Stranger.
thank
I
you.
thought that was just fabulous.
Thank you. Thanks. It was a lot
Um, you're at the top of the heap. You've done 33 books. You've got all these 14 Netflix series going. You're #1 New York Times. Does it ever get easier?
no.
No, I thought you'd say that.
I don't think it'd be as satisfying if it got easier. I mean,
Yeah.
this was a heck of a week. I love Win being out. I love promoting it. And I'm still still a kid hoping that it'll hit the New York Times bestseller list and all of those things. It's more relaxed in the sense that I get it doesn't matter as much. It's a, it's not like I'm not going to be published again, or I'm going to be poor if it doesn't work out. So that kind of pressure's off. So I enjoy it maybe more, but I'm not good at easing up. It just is not my personality.
Yeah.
So I think when it gets easier, first of all, only bad writers think they're good, right? If you notice that, Shari, like the writer.
Yeah, I always hate my books. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always that moment, and I always just like I'll be writing I'll be writing the book right now, and I'll be going, "Oh my God, this sucks. That was so good before. What happened?" Then I'll go, "Oh my God, this is so great. That other book sucks," and this kind of stuff goes on all of the time.
I know. Do you know, about a month ago, I was struggling with my latest book. And one day I said to my agent, I said, "You know what? This is really good. I think this is one of the best books I've ever written." And she goes, "Just a minute, I'm writing that down." She wrote it down. She put a date on it. And then she sent a text with a picture of it to me yesterday.
Because right now, it's a love-hate relationship. And I think the writers who don't go through this are probably starting to sort of phone it in. And, I know Stephen King a couple books ago, he kindly used me as a character in a book, and he asked my permission, like I was going to say no. But when he sent it to me, I could tell he was kind of like nervous about my reaction and how are people going to like this book? And I'm like, dude, you're Stephen King.
Yeah.
You still do it. So I don't think it ever goes. That's what makes him so great. I don't think it ever goes away.
No, I think you're right. All right, I have a couple of quick questions, and then we have to go to questions from the audience.
Okay.
What is your secret snack when you're writing?
Geez, I don't really have one.
You don't have a secret snack?
No, most I've been doing nuts lately, like cashews and almonds, though I love Yasso frozen yogurt bars. Yasso, if you hear me, please send me free bars because I just promoted your product. I'm getting nothing for that, but I'm into Yasso frozen yogurt bars.
Cool. And one other quick question. Your dog, Laszlo, do you put him in your acknowledgements?
Laszlo is a character sometimes in the book, and I now have another dog named Winslow. One of them are here. I kept them downstairs tonight. Sorry, people. They are the most popular part of my Instagram and Twitter. And so we have a new puppy Winslow is 6 months old, and the two of them are a little too adorable and distracting together. So if I'm a little slower on the book, we can blame the dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think we've gone a little over, so I have to switch over to Roz, and she's going to moderate the questions for us.
Hi, thank you so much, both of you, Shari and Harlan, for that great discussion. It was so much fun to listen to your conversation. Before we actually go into questions from the audience, we are first going to do a couple polls that we're going to launch just to get some information from our audience. So those should be launching right now, I believe. There we go. There's 2 questions on this poll. One's just to let us know how many people are watching on your device, since we can't see you and can't do a head count. And the other one is just to let us know how you learned about this event.
While they're doing that, I just want to also point out that you guys are really, I assume most of you are from the Chicago or this area.
Right.
First of all, I've never heard so many libraries in my life, but I've been to that area and I know how great your libraries and those 2 or 3 independent bookstores that you have on the list are, and how valuable they are to your community. There is really no great community I've ever been to when I travel around doing these that don't have a great library. It's just,
Exactly.
it goes
Same.
hand in hand. And so when you're supporting your library, you're actually increasing the value of your home when you resell it. And think about your independent bookstore. If that's not there, it's going to be a Banana Republic or a Gap or some crap like that, or a sub sandwich place or something really, chain sub sandwich place. So support those bookstores, keep supporting the library. It really pays off in so many different ways. We all grew up with libraries, so you have to let the next generation do that too. And that's my.
It's all like one ecosystem. The libraries, the authors, the booksellers, they all kind of support each other.
Do you ever get people, that they apologize that they got your book out of the library, and they go, "Don't apologize. It's fantastic that you get my book out of the librry."
No, I love it.
I think that's fabulous.
I'm just hoping right now there's a wait list, Roz. I hope there's a wait list.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But yes, no, I discovered most of my favorite writers when I was growing up. I discovered at the library. Now, then you start buying the books. As a writer, and I'm sure, Shari, you'll agree with this, I don't really care how you, when I get these questions like, oh, do you want audio or ebook, or I don't care if you read it on stone tablets.
Yeah, or if you borrow it from a friend even,
We want to be read. I don't care. I just want to have that one-on-one thing that we get to have. Sorry, Roz, we're talking.
And I think we have one more poll that we're going to put up also. Here we go. So this is to see how big a fan are you?
Let's see.
So which one of these statements is not true? So take a look. We're going to leave them up there for a little bit, and you can vote, and then we will share the results.
I think I know.
Oh, you should know.
I'm not positive, but I think I know.
Oh, I'm not allowed to vote. I think I know, though.
Okay, so we're sharing the results. So 46% of people thought that Little League Baseball inducted Harlan Coben into their Hall of Fame of Excellence. But that actually is true, correct, Harlan?
No.
Okay.
That's the one I picked.
So the one that is not true for everyone at home is the final one, correct? Harlan Coben just announced that a new Myron novel is in the works. So that is not true.
The rest of them are true. Yep. Little League. If you go to Williamsport, where they have the baseball, the Little League Hall of the Little League Finals, you can actually see me in the museum. I got to throw out the first pitch to the team from Japan.
Wow.
It was really an awesome experience.
But you must golf, don't you?
I do golf.
You must
Not
golf,
well, but I golf. It's a terrible sport. Why I didn't smash a glass and jam it in my eye, I don't know. Instead, I took up golf. It's the one thing I do.
So we do have a bunch of questions from our audience. I'm going to try to get to a few of them. So let's see. Greg would like to know, do any of your friends or family members ever think you are writing about your acquaintances or private fantasies, and does it ever make you feel insecure?
No, it does make me feel insecure. My friends always think the cool characters are based on them. They never say, that loser with halitosis who never gets any of the girls? That's me, right? They never think that. The humpback never sees the hump in his own back. So I never really worry if I take anything negative from somebody, because they never see it. That said, my friends know that what they say, what they tell me in their lives is, I won't point out exactly who it was, but that's open season. I eavesdrop. I'm sure Shari, same thing. You have the same
all material. Yep.
Yeah. So I never feel bad about it. Sorry.
Let's see. Mary Kay would like to know how the pandemic influenced your writing. Just how did that impact you? Was it harder to be creative? Did you have lots of time to be creative?
I think, as I do in any year, I went through a lot of ups and downs. When it first hit, which about a year ago, was right about to go on book tour for The Boy from the Woods. I was paralyzed. I didn't write at all. Then I got into a really good, comfortable stretch. Then I got bad again. I do think, look, this is a nightmare, and it's a nightmare for everybody. But for writers, so we social isolate anyway. I am a socially adept introvert. I mean, I could talk to you now, but I will get exhausted and I will pass out as soon as this is over. But I don't mind being alone. I'm not going to put the pandemic yet in a book because one, I was writing when this happened. So by the time the next March would come around, I didn't know what the pandemic would be in March of last year. I don't know what it'll be in July this year. So I don't want to do it until maybe this is all over and I can look back on it. I don't even think then. And also lastly, and then I'll let Shari answer, I think part of our job is to give you that escapism. And when it first hit, The Stranger had just come out on Netflix. The Boy from the Woods had just come out. And a lot of you were kind enough to write, this is how I'm, this is helping me get through COVID. So I don't want to watch a show about COVID. So I wouldn't want to write one. Shari?
I agree.
I agree completely. I'm so sick of COVID. I can't wait for it to be over. And I think most writers aren't really touching it.
We have a question from Linda. She said, are you thinking about doing any more young adult novels? She's a high school librarian and she says that we need you.
Well, thank you.
Boys reading.
Thank you. I wrote 3, a trilogy, and that's going to be it, I think, for a couple reasons. One is that with the TV series, I can't do both. I could do young adult and adult novel in a year. I really have to pick and choose. It was always intended to be a trilogy. And the other thing is my characters age and change. So Mickey and Ema and Spoon would do the same. They'd be out of high school by now. In fact, if you read Win, Ema is in. So what I tell the kids are, once they finish those 3, I think they're old enough for the most part to start moving into Myron Bolitar. Home is really, which is an adult novel, is really the 4th Mickey Bolitar novel. And Win is also, if you want to follow the lives of the 3 lead characters, you will see at least one of them in that. So my guess is Mickey will be back. Mickey and the gang will be back again, but probably a little bit older and in Myron Bolitar novels.
So here's a question that actually both Harlan and Shari could answer. It's from Helena, and she would like to know, do you have a traditional way to celebrate the end of a book? For some reason, says she pictures Harlan with like a glass of champagne or something.
Well,
but anyhow, do both of you have a tradition?
Shari, you want to take that first?
I do the champagne. I always get the bottle of champagne for every good occasion.
This is you. I'll do a quick impression of typing the end. It usually comes at some weird hour. It's just the best. It really is. People, the best feeling. And this is going to sound, and I admitted this the other night for the first time, so I'll say it again. Usually I'm in tears at the end of the book. It sounds really weird, but I really get caught up in whatever emotion. If I'm not, it's probably not working, but whatever emotion, not that I'm leaving these characters and not going to see them again or any of that kind of writerly talky stuff. But I'm genuinely being moved by what Win's predicament is and where he's going to go next. And I do get caught up in the emotion of it. So I will find myself welling up when I finish a book. And then, celebrations are more muted because I really am physically exhausted. I feel like I just went 15 rounds in a boxing match and I can't even lift my arms.
We have a few people have asked in the Q&A. They're interested to know if you write on the computer or do you use pencil and paper?
Shari, you want to take that one first?
Oh, everything on the keyboard. I couldn't possibly write by hand. My handwriting's, you can't read it. I can't read it.
I can't read my handwriting either, but I do both. The key to my other writing saying that I like to say is that if it produces pages, good. If it doesn't produce pages, bad. That's my whole life, right? If it produces pages, helps me produce pages. So sometimes, most times I should say most times, a lot of times I'll write straight on the word processor. Sometimes I'll have a notebook. Sometimes I'll do both. There's something to me freeing and childlike about having pen to paper. Also, you can cross out and still see it. When you delete something on a computer, it's gone forever. And the last thing is, besides being able to think on paper, when I then I do it like in 10-page spurts, let's say. So if I do 10 pages on here and I put it on my computer, my first draft is already my second draft. So
Right.
the answer to that question is, and I know Shari agrees with this answer, whatever makes you write. Hit stone tablets together. So I know a friend that talks into one of these. Then he knows he can't really use that, but then he can use it because he knows where he's going.
Mhm.
Takes walks and he talks into one. Yeah, that's going to work. Whatever's going to get you moving.
Mhm.
We have another question kind of along those lines for both of you. They want to know if you've ever attended a writer's retreat. Did you find that helpful, or what was your experience like?
Shari?
I've never been to one. Sounds nice if it's in a castle in France, but no, I've never been to one.
I've never been to a writer's retreat. I've been to a number of crime writing festivals like Boucher
Oh, yeah.
and those kind of conferences.
Mhm.
And for me, they do work in ways maybe they're not supposed to. But I do come home whenever I'm with a lot of people and I'm busy like that. Because of my personality, all I want to do is lock myself in a room. It's why I answer Shari's question before maybe a little better when they like if I go on the set of the TV show, if I fly over and I'm there for like 3 or 4 days, I'm like, oh my God, I got to get home and I got to lock myself in a room and write. So it almost works that it helps me in that kind of a way. Being crowded or being around a lot of people makes me long to be alone and to write.
With a few people that would like to know what you're currently reading.
Ooh, I know what I'm reading.
Go
I am
ahead.
almost finished the new Lisa Unger, which is really, really good. It's called Last Girl Ghosted, and I highly recommend it, but it won't be out till like next October.
I just got an advanced copy of Allison Galen's next book called The Collective, which is awesome. She's been kind of flying under the radar. I think this book will probably change that. I also just finished one. I'm so bad at the name, but is it called Who is Maud Dixon? By Alexandra Andrews, I think her last name is. And that was a really good crime fiction story also.
I just want to say, Harlan, you're a great champion of women writers, and we all really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, because a lot of men don't read women writers, and Harlan clearly does.
Yeah, well, I've read everything Shari. For those who were here for me, I have read every Shari book.
Oh, thank you.
If you want really great suspense and you haven't yet discovered Shari Lapena, well, that's what you're here for. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah, it goes without saying. I could choose a lot of people to do this talk with. Last one was with John Grisham. This was with Shari Lapena. So I only pick people who I think are awesome.
Thanks.
Our last question from our audience is a lot of people want to know if you would pick along the lines of your favorite book, or if you would pick up one of your own book to read, which one would it be?
What book's my favorite of mine?
Yeah.
Win. Now available in hardcover.
That's the right answer. Mine would be, I don't know, I'm so tired of my books when I finish them, to be honest. So probably the more distance I get from them, the more I'd like. So I'd probably go back to the first one, The Couple Next Door. But yeah, I guess the answer is my favorite book is Not a Happy Family, which will be out in the summer.
Yeah. Well, it's
My very best.
I'm the opposite, where the closer a book is to me, the more I like it. Because it's like, that essay you wrote when you were in college, you thought was brilliant, and you find it now and you read it and you go, wow, I was an idiot. What was I thinking? That's how I feel about old novels. I never go back and reread them. So usually whatever I'm writing currently is my favorite, whichever one just was released.
Well, I know we've covered so much. We've covered so much about the writing process and your books, and we've gotten so many wonderful comments from people in the Q&A also just that have loved hearing from both of you. I'm going to invite Grace from Glencoe Library to come on and kind of wrap us up with a few announcements.
Thanks, Roz. Well, that's it for this evening's program. Thank you all so much for joining us. And thanks especially to Shari Lapena for doing a fabulous job facilitating this fun and interesting conversation. And of course, to Mr. Harlan Coben, who has surely made a lot of new fans tonight. A reminder that if you'd like to buy a copy of When, you're invited to do so using a purchase link to the local independent booksellers, the Bookstall and Barbara's Bookstore. The links will be included in the follow-up email that we'll be sending out tomorrow. Naturally, you can also borrow a copy from your local library. Please remember that if you missed part of tonight's event, or if you know someone who would like to see it, Mr. Coben very nicely permitted us to record this. The video will be available through your library's YouTube channel sometime next week. Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you, Shari. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Thanks,
Good night.
library.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.